Back at it again. College hoops coast to coast with my man Kevin Sweeney. We got special guest Cody Toppert from Memphis in the building. Sweeney, Cody, what up, fellas?
How we
Not
doing?
much. I gotta say, I'm incredibly impressed with that intro. That is way better than, like, say, the intro to Succession or Billions. I mean, you guys really got this thing rolling here. So outstanding work.
We got to talk Succession at some point because it was like midsummer. I was watching it for the first time and I tweeted something about Succession. And I get a text immediately from Topper like, yo, is there a new season out? Like, am I missing something? I was like, nah, man, I'm just behind. Like, it's good. It's big time. I love it.
Yeah, I'm locked in on all of these, whether it's Squid Games to you to any creepy television. I'm there. If it's not basketball, it's Netflix and chill.
What about Ted Lasso? Did you get into that like a lot of coaches have got into it?
Absolutely. Me and Larry Brown are so into Ted Lasso, it's not even funny, right? Larry, though, the funny thing about Larry is he's got one episode to watch. He's got to watch the last episode. We're all really mad at Nate right now, right?
Rightfully so.
Yeah, rightfully so. And he just refuses to watch the last episode until our director of recruiting comes back over to his house because they'd watched every episode together.
Oh, nice.
So he won't watch it without Jeremy Kipnis. It's the funniest thing. I'm like, you got to watch it, Coach. You got to watch it so we can have something to talk about.
Now, what about Penny? Does Penny watch Ted Lasso? Be honest. I don't see Penny Hardaway watching Ted Lasso.
I don't think Coach is a Ted Lasso guy. Yeah, exactly. Definitely. I mean, Ted Lasso's got a little bit of swag, though. Coach Penny's got all the swag. So
he does have swag. There's no doubt. They would relate if they were in person, but I don't know if he's taking the time to watch Ted Lasso.
Yeah, there's no doubt. No doubt.
I love it. Well, Memphis Tigers, #1 recruiting class in the country. Congratulations on that. Exciting year. You got this star-studded staff. Let's start with the staff. You talked about Larry Brown. Rasheed Wallace is now a part of the staff. Sean Forrest snuck in the back door. He's on the staff now. You got all kind of, high-level experienced staff members. You got a Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame coach, NBA champions. You got Penny. You got yourself. Let's not forget Cody Toppert's got a long list of resume too. So let's talk about the staff real quick before we pass the mic to Kevin and let him take over.
Yeah, we also added Rob Hornet from, he'd been in the NBA with the Golden State Warriors organization as well as our strength coach. And you alluded to Sean Forrest. It's unbelievable experience to go in every day and work with them. If you would have told me when I was, 12 years old that I'd be working for Penny Hardaway, first of all, I'd have told you you're absolutely insane. But now to get to work alongside Rasheed Wallace, somebody who I also, grew up watching, rooting for. I remember watching his North Carolina Tar Heels, dominate. I got a great Rasheed Wallace story. It's hilarious. And then, Coach Brown. I mean, when I finished playing overseas in 2012, he was getting things ramped up at SMU. And as you know, Brian, I was running my development company out of Dallas, and I would go to all of his practices, and he always had an open door policy. And on the first day, I said, I bet you don't remember me. I did have hair back in 2012, but I bet you don't remember. The one time I went into your office, just introduced myself and say hello, and he had me sit down. We talked basketball for about an hour, and that's just the type of guy he is. So to be around these people every day is it's an unbelievable opportunity for me, right, to learn from their experiences and, to see different and new ways of doing things and, hear how it was to coach the great ones. I mean, Coach Brown's been at it for 53 years. It's incredible. And on the back end too now, he's got to learn how to do a scouting report, and he told me he's never done one. So, we're going to have some fun, right? I don't think he'll be ramping up the sports coding on his computer and stuff like that. We've got a good core group of guys that are right there with him. We'll help him out along the way. So it's been a blast to this point, and we're just looking forward to further great things.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm sure their relationship has got to be unbelievable to think they'd be on the same coaching staff together. And Larry may have thought that at some point when he coached him because he's such a high IQ player. But I'm curious, what is that like?
Well, the funny thing is we tell them that finally they're wearing the right shade of blue. This whole time they've been wrong. They didn't even realize it, right? They've just been wrong because they're both Carolina guys, right? So if you think about it, Coach Brown is a big Dean Smith guy, obviously. And funny story about Rasheed Wallace. I'll tell this story before we move on. When it comes to, the Dean Smith, Rasheed is a freshman. And I mean, this is like the story of legends, right? And like, he was big on side to side, get the ball moving, right? A lot of passes, few dribbles. Ball comes around to Rasheed, boom. He knocks in a, 15, 17-foot baseline jumper. Dean Smith, boop, he blows the practice dead. No, what are we doing? What are we doing? Looks over Rasheed. Rasheed's like, what are you talking about? He says, what kind of shot was that? You think you can make that shot? And he goes, yeah. And he didn't. Says, okay, he thinks he can make that shot. You think you can make 10 of those? And so they start throwing him balls. And Rasheed shoots it, knocks it down. Shoots it, knocks it down. Shoots it, knocks it down. And on the 10th one, he shoots it left-handed and makes it. Dean Smith says, on to the next drill.
That's awesome.
So, every day we're having a lot of fun. Crazy thing about Coach Brown and his stories too. With my grandfather, when he reached about 80, there were 3 stories and they each rotated, right? So every Monday I knew what story I was getting. And I got the same story every Wednesday and every Friday. But with Coach Brown, it's unbelievable. I haven't heard the same story twice. It's remarkable.
That is remarkable. All right, I'm going to pass the mic to Sweeney, let him get – you got your daughter in the background. I don't know if you knew that, by the way.
There are visitors everywhere. Halloween just ended. I thought that was a gremlin for a minute.
I love it.
The real star of the show. But you mentioned, these guys have been around the best, and this group certainly has some guys that have the aspiration to be some of the best in the NBA down the line. Imani Bates, Jalen Duren in particular. For you as someone who's coached in the NBA and coached to Devin Booker, and for the rest of the staff who's coached some huge names as well, what have been the things that you've tried to work on with those 2 guys in particular from an NBA preparation standpoint?
I think the big thing is emphasizing being a 24-hour pro, right? Because there is the time when obviously you're practicing, you're lifting weights, you're working out, or you're playing a game and all that. But the real great ones, what they do is they have a 24-hour professional mentality, right? So that's what they're eating, the time spent away from the game, how they're preparing their body to be at its apex, obviously when the lights are on. And I think that's something that we're emphasizing every single day is the habits that are going to carry these guys. Not just to get them to the next level, but then maximize their career and what they can do with the game of basketball in general. So, and to their credit, every single guy that we have on our team, is totally bought into that. I mean, it's unbelievable when you've got guys like, you got Coach Brown who can talk about what it was like, to deal with Allen Iverson. But it's not just about Allen, right? The reason they were so successful was because of the other guys who recognized Allen's special talent, allowed Allen to be Allen, but also were able to do their job and fill their role, which allowed them to maximize as a team, right? So we can hear about those stories directly from the guy who coached them, or you can hear about Chauncey Billups' leadership, right? Or Tayshaun Prince's leadership, within a championship organization from the guys who lived it. It's incredibly valuable because you accompany that with Coach Hardaway, being, 6-time NBA All-Star, NBA, first team All-NBA. And it's like you've just got this perfect storm of people that, it's one thing to hear it, but it's another thing to hear from people who lived it. So I think there's a uniqueness there that really puts everybody on at attention, right? In terms of, we've really got to perk up and take this stuff to heart.
And with Imani, how do you think he's dealt with the outside noise, right? Like it's inevitable that, really since SI put him on the cover at 15, that he was going to be treated a little bit differently by the rest of the world. Now that he's in college and anticipating the limelight that's going to be on him for the next, 4 months of the season, how has he managed that? And how have you guys as coaches tried to, support him through that, especially as I think the youngest player in college basketball this season?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is, right, because of all of the pressure and expectations that were put on him at a young age, right, this is nothing new to him. And in fact, what seems to be, I think, new is the intimacy of the environment that he gets to be in now, right? So there's almost like a protective bubble, right, that is our building, right, our practice facility. So when he goes in there, right, all the noise can be canceled out because unless you got the fingerprint that gets you the access to the building, right, you're all good, right? So, and what I love about him is he likes to lose himself in his work, right? So today was an off day. He got in, he did a film session, he did additional player development workouts. And so, that's somebody who really wants to be great, but is taking the action steps, right, to be great. And, for him, as far as handling the pressure, I think he's used to. I think if there's anything that we're seeing right now, it's that, him being able to play with other good players, right, is actually going to show his true greatness, because he really just wants to make the right play. And there have been times on his team where he's been the first, second, third, fourth, fifth scoring option, right? Nobody else to turn to, attacking double teams, right, and things like that. And so, shot selection was just a product of his environment in terms of the makeup of those teams that he was on, right? Not who he is, right? And what he wants to do is make the right play, and he's got a high basketball IQ, but above all else, he just wants to be great. And so I have no doubts that he's going to have a great season, and then ultimately go on and have a great career.
And certainly one of the things you're known for in particular is player development. When you're dealing with a team where everyone has to buy into such specific roles because there's so many talented guys, right? Like Amani is in a different role than he's ever been in. Jalen Duren's in probably a slightly different role than he's ever been in. A guy like Earl Timberlake's been the best player on his team all his life, and he could be a first-round pick, and he's going to have to buy into a different role, right? Like, from a player development standpoint, how do you balance the, this year we need you to be able to do this, to the NBA, this is what you're going to be asked to do? Because that's something that obviously Kentucky's dealt with over the years with, the 5-star guys that they brought in. How have you guys balanced that, equation of winning college games versus the pro development that's necessary for these guys to, exceed their potential?
Well, I think the first thing is, the way Coach Hardaway put together this roster, right? A roster is like a jigsaw puzzle, right? So what you don't want is a lot of overlapping skill sets, because then you have certain guys whose strengths are maybe to do the same job. But when we get on the floor, right, we need guys who can space the floor. We need guys who are playmaking for others. We need dynamic rolling. We need rebounding. We need defense, all those things. And so, what you see with the NBA roster construction is general managers trying to find fits, right, and not just accumulate talent, right, because you do have to fit these pieces together appropriately. So I think that we've got guys who understand what their roles are and understand how to star in those roles, which I think is the first component. But the second component is really, and this is kind of, what I like to preach, is you've got to treat your basketball day and your development almost like a fancy steak dinner, right? Because there are guys who will go to, you go to a fancy dinner, right? And maybe you have a lot of appetizers, and you have, you eat a salad, you get a soup, and you're full right before the main course, right? But for everybody each day, the main course is our practice, is our team practice, is making sure that we're able to execute under duress when we need it, all of our offensive and defensive components. That's huge, right? And so we have to make sure that we don't fill up on the appetizers and the salad, right? That's getting in early, getting your film work. We want to do all that stuff, but we don't want to overwork ourselves, right, to where we're too exhausted before we go into that team practice. And then what you also want to do, right, is after practice, we treat it like dessert, right? So if you handle all your business, you eat your vegetables, you get dessert. But if you don't, you don't. And so you've got to give us max effort in the practice, because there are certain players then who will save some of what they do, right, some of their energy for the after practice work. And what they don't necessarily do is give you everything during practice. So during the meat of the day, during that practice, we need everybody to empty their tank, right? If you do it appropriately, then we'll allow you to have your dessert, right? And that's where we're going to work on some of those advanced NBA concepts that you talked about, and help these guys then really progress their game. But at the end of the day, it's going to be what we do on the court this year at the University of Memphis that allows those guys to get to where they're trying to get to.
Yeah, from a scheduling standpoint, obviously looking ahead, it's easy to it's I know as coaches, like, all right, November 9th, November 10th, like we got to deal with those days, and we'll move on to the rest. But you guys have some big challenges, from a scheduling standpoint when you're putting together an Alabama game, a Tennessee game. How much of that plan is built around making sure you're giving showcase opportunities to the talent that you have on this roster?
Well, I think, obviously I'm just, my third year here, but if there's one thing that I've realized, the first thing about putting together a good schedule, especially when you're playing in the American Conference, is the more quad one games you can add, the better it is, right, in terms of a tournament resume. Right. And, I had the conversation with Coach Brown actually about that. We can only play who's on our schedule. Right. So last year, for instance, the Bahamas tournament turned into something completely different. Not only did we not get to the beach, they shipped us to where the snow was at in Sioux Falls, and then they changed all the teams around. Right. So I know Coach Hardaway wants us to play the toughest teams that we possibly can. The funny thing about the game of basketball is, I think that in general, teams have a tendency to play up or play down to the level of their competition a lot of times. And I don't really care, which team it is, right? If you're a mid-major team, a low major, a high major, right? And so, the higher level of competition, the more opportunity there is for our players to step up to that level of competition. And I know Coach Hardaway wants our guys to have opportunities to showcase themselves. But really where they're going to showcase themselves for the next level is every day in practice. Because if we have 5 practices out of a day, we've got NBA scouts at least 3 to 4 of them. And, that's not just because we have the talent, but we're also in an NBA city. We play in an NBA arena, right? So when an NBA team lands in a city, right, usually there's front office staff that travel with them. And so because of that, whoever comes to play the Grizzlies, they're going to send their front office representatives up to our practice. So there really is never an off day in terms of evaluation, when it comes to being a part of our program. And I know that we're looking forward to not just winning the next day, winning the next practice, but ultimately getting into these games. And, they're just fun, right? The games are really the cherry on top, but it's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes into helping these guys elevate their games and obviously winning games in general.
Yeah, I love that part you talked about. Like, I'm sure that's a great recruiting tool too, to be able to talk about being that there's a pro city right there. So everybody's coming through that you're on a big stage, right? And talk about this, because obviously you have a pro staff. You've been in the league, Larry, everybody on the staff. So talk about what is the challenge to actually get these young men from the culture. You've had NBA players there before. You guys have had talent. There's another step that Memphis basketball feels like it's taking right now. Staff-wise, player-wise, what is the next step culture-wise you feel like behind the scenes to kind of help put the program not only just to the NCAA tournament, but Memphis wants to make a run and compete in Final Fours, national championship. We just saw Houston from the same league go. So that's got to give some fuel to the Tiger fan base and the coaching staff to feel like, okay, why not us?
No, absolutely. I think the big thing when you talk about culture, the next word to me is standards, right? Because culture is really a reflection of what your standards are. And standards are something that you have to meet daily, right? That standard is not an exception, right? You can't be great every third Wednesday of every odd month, right? That's not how it works, because consistency is greatness. And that's not just on the floor, what you're doing, making baskets. That's off the floor. That's what you're doing in the community. That's how you're handling yourselves, in study hall, in your academic requirements, and all of those things, right? So for us, when we talk about the next step, the big difference of this team's makeup from my first year was the first year we brought in a lot of those freshmen, a big, 8-man freshman class, and the returners were all sophomores, right? So we did not have a calming veteran presence that first year, right? We had a bunch of neophytes, right? And so we had a bunch of kids who hadn't been through it. We tried to tell them what it was going to be like at Wichita State in a conference game, when they've got, 14,000 fans screaming in that 10 gymnasium where it all echoes and you can't hear a darn thing. You tell them about it, but it's one thing to have lived through it, been through it, right? And so now we've got with some veterans, right, with Landers, Nolly, Lester Quinones, DeAndre Williams, Alex Lomax, right? Those guys who have been here, been through the fire, been through, all of the difficult times, but they've persevered. Now they can help kind of light that path for the next group to come along, right? And so I think what we've done with this new group of freshmen that we brought in, outside of Jalen Durden and Imani Bates, the rest of them are all tremendous culture figures, guys who are already, they're leaders in the classroom, right? They're leaders in the community, and now they've got a group to follow. I think that's the perfect mix, right? So the best cultures are the ones that you don't have to talk about, right? Because it's the standard, right? It's not something we have to emphasize, and it's not something we have to speak on, but you have to defend it every day. And, I think Coach Hardaway is really emphasizing that shift to make sure that everything we're doing is pointing in the right direction.
Right. Yeah, well said. I'm curious, too. Everybody talks about the venues to play in and what's one of the hardest places to play and what's one of the best fan bases. And Memphis is up there as one of the best. Describe it for those that don't know. Tell us a little bit about what it's actually like there, especially at a time like this. I mean, this season, I think Sweeney's tweet might have been something about like it's going to be a movie or something. You know what I mean? So there's people that are talking about this year's team and this year's culture. But overall, Memphis has an enormous fan base and following. What is it like there, and what is it like there now with this team and the energy around the program?
Yeah, I think ESPN definitely jumped the gun in doing their documentary series 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago when I got here, I couldn't go anywhere without a microphone on because those guys were following us around everywhere. But no, this is the thing. It's, they love basketball here. The Grizzlies are doing fantastic, and they're off the charts, and the support is great from them as well, but it really is a Tiger town. I mean, if I'm, out on mowing my lawn, I'm out there for 30 minutes, right? People are going to drive by. Hey, let's go, coach. Let's go, coach. It's unbelievable how it's like a big city with this small town feel, right? Conversely, that brings a lot of pressure, and pressure is a privilege. But, you lose 3 games in a row. You wonder if the barista spit in your coffee at Starbucks, right? So, there's a lot that comes with that right now. But I think to be honest with you, the fans are so unbelievable. It's tremendous. I mean, 2 years ago, we were 9th in the country in attendance. I didn't know what to expect. I went to my first Memphis Madness, right? And I was like, oh, my gosh, you talk about a movie. I mean, Coach came in from the roof, and there was smoke. And then this year there were flames. And, the whole deal was unbelievable. The only thing I would have swapped out is some of the rappers. If we could have gotten one Republican there, that would have been more my speed. But it was a lot of fun, right? But the fans, they support all these kids. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that support system is a lifetime, Think about it. Coach Hardaway obviously played here. Dwight Boyd, our director of player personnel, played here. Yep. You take it back to Tony Matlock, who I was here with 2 years, played here. And now we've got GAs on staff. We've got Willie Kemp, who played in that 2008 national championship game. We've got Jeremy Hunt, who played for the Tigers, right? So it's really a once a Tiger, always a Tiger mentality. And we just recently dedicated Larry Finch Plaza, and that was unbelievable. Larry Finch was obviously a great player and a great coach at the University of Memphis. Yep. And, now we've got a statue out in front of our practice facility to commemorate, him as a leader on the floor of young men, him as a leader in the community, him as a pillar, for college basketball, and actually the merging of race relations here in Memphis, from back in the 60s. So there's so many cool things that are going on around here, but you've got 85-year-old grand ladies who know every single thing about the Tigers, and you've got young 12-year-old kids at middle school who just love the Tigers. So it's a beautiful town, and I know me and my family just feel like we are truly a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that, and excited to see what the Tigers do this year. I got one player I want to ask about. I'm biased towards Texas. I'm from Texas, known this young man since he was young, coached against him when I was in the Horizon League in Indiana. Talk about this young man. He's on the Karl Malone watch list as a Power 40 year candidate. Everyone's talking about the new guys you have, but DeAndre Williams is one of the better returning players in college basketball. And if he hadn't been healthy all year, it's probably a different outcome even for you guys last year. Talk a little bit about him and what he's like to coach, his development, and what you kind of see from him this year.
Well, I'm a little bit of a basketball geek, as maybe everybody knows, who knows, but from the analytics perspective, right? He loves this. He loves his. I've got a nickname for him. We call him the Green Lantern, because literally all of his advanced statistics are green all the way across the board, right? He was the best, had the best defensive rating of any player in the country last year. He led our conference in steals, right? His defensive plus minus was off the charts. It was incredible. And that doesn't even account the fact that when I tell you this, that he's a career 45% 3-point shooter, I'm sure that's going to blow your mind, right? He's got a little hitch in his shot, but he takes the right ones, and thus he makes the right ones, right? He's a playmaker. He's someone who can really, a jack of all trades, play all across the board, right? Yep. He can switch. He can defend guards. He can lead the break when he gets the rebound. He can make timely shots, but he also almost averaged 4 assists a game. So we talk about the Green Lantern in terms of just basketball play. This guy brings everything that you want. But in terms of, emotional spirit, leadership, positivity, I think that's really where that is his greatest attribute. Right. Him and Rasheed Wallace, boy, I'll tell you what, these two guys just have gravitated together. Boom. Because the spirit and the energy that they both bring is very similar. Yep. So I know when it comes to DeAndre, right, if we're talking about how he can grow. It's going to be from a leadership perspective, not that he's not a positive voice, but he has a tendency to get so emotionally invested and hyped on one play that maybe he's forgetting about what we have to do next, right? And so, him and Rashid have had great conversations about things like, hey, how can we get you locked in on our out of timeout stuff, right? Take it from the board to the floor and execute now, and continue to bring all that great emotional spirit that you bring. But DeAndre is a special young fellow. His story is remarkable. And, going all the way from being out of basketball to having a job at a supermarket, like it's unbelievable, to getting back into basketball, to having that big game at Kentucky, to getting recruited by everybody, to then being forced to sit out to start last season, to then being, just our cornerstone on a team that, goes on a nice run and wins the NIT. So the story's already remarkable, but now you add this other talent in there with him. And I think he has a real chance to let the nation know and hear his story, which I'm really excited about for him.
Yeah, I would agree. I coached against him when I was at IUPUI. He was at Evansville. I want to say he might have missed 2 shots. He had like 30 plus, 11 rebounds, so many assists, made 2 threes. And I'm talking to him after the game. I'm like, where did all this come from? He's like, yeah, coach, I've been working. He loves the game, man. He loves the game.
He loves the game. The Green Lantern.
Love to see it. I love to see it. So you got to tell us at least one funny story before you go. I know we're keeping you a little bit longer. It's always a pleasure to have C-Top. We'll have you on during the year, hopefully at some point too. But would love to hear one funny story from either the player perspective. You told us a little bit about the coaching perspective and the staff. Give us one more funny one before you go.
Well, there's a lot of them, right? Some of the funniest. I mean, a lot of them have to do with Coach Brown because I spend so much time with him. But Coach Brown has his hearing aid connected to his phone, right? It's the best Bluetooth in the country. I mean, his phone could be like miles away, and if anybody calls, it's going to arrive right here in his ear, right? So what we've been working on right now, so he just upgraded his iPhone, right, which just really threw things into a mess. And so once we got it connected, we had to figure out how to silence it during practice. So for the last few practices, Coach Brown, right, is trying to coach and walk our guys through something. He's pointing something out, and then all of a sudden you hear him just like, it's almost like he's getting something's happening, and he's getting some kind of static feedback. And then he come to find out that people are calling him, and sometimes he's trying to ignore the call, right? It's like, beam me up, Scotty. And sometimes he's accidentally answering the call. And so, we're figuring out the whole technology thing as we go here. But the best part is it's incredible. I mean, heck, if I told him if he can figure out how to coach with like 8 different people like talking in his ear right there, that's incredible. It shows that he is not he is cold-blooded because he's seen it all, right? Whether it's late game ATO, game 7 NBA finals type stuff, he's already drawn it up and been through it. So, nothing phases him. But we're having a blast every day, and God willing, it'll spill over onto the floor, and working hard to have a great season. So I definitely appreciate you guys having me on, and appreciate everybody who supports the Tigers.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna steal one more. So what's one thing before you go that you would want people to know about this basketball team outside of the talent, outside of just like, hey, we're the Memphis Tigers, we got the number 1 recruiting class, we're ranked 12. What's something you would want people to actually know about this team specifically?
How much they care about each other, right? Because the true testament of a real team, right, is when you care so much that you're happier when somebody else does something right than even when you do something for yourself. Right. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm taking away from these guys, to have this amount of talent and then have no egos and have everybody treating each other in a way that says, hey, listen, I care about you. I'm going to do something for you today. I think that's the separator, right? Because that's when true team chemistry takes over. And so, hopefully we can continue to get that to spill over. Usually what I've found is when guys like each other, it reflects in the assist category, right? So we had 30 and 22 in our first. 20 has always been our goal. As long as we're moving that direction and playing dominoes, I think good things will happen.
No doubt. Yeah, when you have talent and you have unselfishness, selflessness type behavior on the floor, pretty special on top of that. And you got a few guys that know a thing about the game coaching, so I think you guys are going to be all right. So, no, Kevin, you got anything last, and then we'll let Cody get back to it.
No, man, we appreciate you hopping on with us. Like B said, we're definitely gonna have to call you back during the season, especially if it goes the way a lot of people I think are hoping it will for this group. But
well,
good
hopefully Hopefully the end of this is like the ending of a Secession episode because it keeps you coming back for more. You know what I mean? We got to see what happens next.
Yes, great way to end on. Great one to end on. And then we also got to ask, what did Coach Brown think about the last episode of Ted Lasso? We got to know that.
We will. We're going to find out. I'm going to set up a nice little date with him and Jeremy. They'll get that taken care of pretty soon, no doubt.
That's awesome. Well, appreciate you, C-Top.
Thanks, guys.
There you have it. Cody Toppert, assistant coach from Memphis, one of the best absolute basketball minds in the country, hands down. If you can't see that from a few minutes watching him talk, you need to probably learn more about basketball. But their staff is star-studded as far as experience, NBA experience, championships, winning, pedigree. You can't get more than that. Their players are bringing the pedigree with the talent across the board. We didn't talk about Lomas. I think he's a preseason watch list player for his position as well at the guard spot. Just a lot of returning talent, a lot of incoming talent, a lot of great leadership on the bench, and it sounds like some selflessness. So tell us a little bit of your takeaways before we close shop today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sixth in the country, so I'm a little bit more bullish than the AP poll, which has them 12th. I think, I think the staff is a key component in that. The big question mark, quite frankly, has been their offense. Every year under Penny, it has not, if you just like kind of look at the metrics like Ken Pom and stuff, and I think CT would be one of the first people to agree with this. Like, they haven't done what they've needed to do. And so, especially when you're putting the ball in the hands of a 17-year-old who's likely to play point guard a lot of the time for them, that's the plan. That's something they sold Amani on, was he's going to be like Penny Hardaway, and Penny Hardaway had the ball in his hands quite a bit. So,
yes, he did.
There will be some, I think, early challenges as they work their way through it, but the talent and the potential is sky high. And when you have a group that is as bought in as this group seems to be, it's hard to believe in my mind that they won't be, really, really good. And when you have the wealth of experiences to fall back on, from Penny's playing experience to, Larry Brown's coaching experience and Rashid's playing experience, I think that'll help the players as well. So I think they're going to be a really fun team to watch. Like I mentioned earlier, the schedule is good. They, again, playing the AAC is tough from like a quad one game standpoint. And I think Top was good at saying them the kindest way possible. Now that he's not here, we can be a little bit more direct about it. Like the league has not been as good, and you're going to miss out on opportunities because of that. But for them to go out and play Tennessee, I tell you what, December 18th in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena, Tennessee, Memphis, that atmosphere is going to be crazy. And it was crazy 2 years ago when Rick Barnes and Penny kind of got into a little bit. I would love to be at that game. We're still mapping out the December schedule, but that would be fun.
We have to do that. I might be right there next to you on that one. That would be worth going to.
Man. But I love chatting with Top. He's a big time guy. I think a guy who will be a head coach sooner rather than later. Whether that be, I think in college he'd be an outstanding college coach. Whether that's
he's obviously been a head coach in the G League.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
A head coach in the G League, but college would definitely be great for him. But go ahead.
Yeah, he's big time. Nobody watches more film. His text lists are legendary. If folks getting film texts on like Friday afternoons, like he is a different grinder.
It's usually every Friday drop. I'm on the list.
I'm on the list as well. It's big time. It's unreal. You get like sitting there like mid-August, Friday afternoon. Jokic tape. Here you go.
The Jokic Friday picks.
But he's a legend and big time coach and a big time communicator. Understands what he wants, and I think like it's funny. He's I got a little heat from people who know him when I tweeted the like Larry Brown, Rasheed Wallace, Penny Hardaway, Jalen Duren into my face. Like, you forgot one member of the staff. I was like, yeah, Cody Toppert ain't like the name that those dudes are. But as a coach, he's on the way. He's on the way 100%.
Yeah, he's as good as it gets. He's an elite basketball mind, elite basketball coach. He will definitely get his opportunity again to be a head coach. In the meantime, I think they have the perfect storm. It took some time. I mean, Kelvin Sampson in Houston, we talked about them. It took some time for them to get where they were, a Final Four team and winning the American the way they have. He didn't do it right away. And same with Penny Hardaway. I think he's finally kind of got the perfect storm of a mix of returners, elite high school talent, along with the staff of complementary parts, right? Larry Brown will bring, I'm pretty sure their practices and their film sessions, as Cody talked about a little bit, just as the staff is on a high level. Not that they weren't good before, but I think it's just perfect timing, perfect storm for everything they have going in Memphis. And it's definitely must-see TV. I don't know if there's a team that's more compelling and a program to watch, from the staff to the players to the personnel, than this program. So it'll be a lot of fun. We appreciate Cody taking the time, and Sweeney has him 6 for a reason. Sweeney's usually right about these things, so we're going to find out.
Yes, sir, we will.
That's all we got for today. And always find us right here, www.gettheaccess.com. is coming soon. If you haven't heard, it's coming soon. So we're working on the website. Yep, it's going to be fun. But in the meantime, you know where to find us on YouTube, live stream. We'll see you soon.